Hello, everyone. Welcome back to St. Louis Teens, and welcome to our new series on young venture capitalists. We're excited to have with us today Sydney Sykes. Sydney is a current student at Stanford Graduate School of Business, a principal at Wave Capital, a co-founder and co-CEO at BlackVC, and a Forbes 30 Under 30 venture capitalist. Sydney, thank you for your phenomenal support of the next generation of venture capitalists, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Sydney, thank you so much for being here. I wanted to start off by asking, what drove you to the field of venture capital and what is the most favorite part of your journey so far?
Venture capital became interesting to me when I was in college. I was hearing about all of these incredible startups like Uber and Snapchat that were all taking off. And it was really interesting to me to see how these businesses could grow so quickly and what was going on behind the scenes. When I started hearing about all of the power and influence and exciting developments going on in venture capital, that was the first thing that got me excited. When I started looking into VC firms more closely and going to their websites, I noticed that it was a really homogenous industry. A lot of the leaders of these firms were, frankly, older white men, and I didn't really see myself reflected. And in some ways, that kind of got me excited. It made me feel like just by joining venture capital, just by being a part of that industry, I could change what it looked like. I could change the future of it. And so both the exciting aspects of working with companies and thinking about the futures of technologies, as well as helping diversify that space, those both drew me to be part of the industry.
And Sydney, you're now one of the youngest venture capitalists. What are some of your keys to success in the field of venture capital, and what are some of the obstacles that young venture capitalists often face?
Yeah, venture really is a very top heavy industry that people tend to be in and make their career for years and years and years. I think one of the most challenging things about an industry like that is looking around at these people who have so much experience, have helped exit companies, have had meaningful impacts on tech and society, and still understanding that you have a valuable role to contribute there. For me, the best advice I can give is just to truly believe in your voice, to take your differences and the things that are unique to you and bring them to the table as an asset. Because venture is truly about finding a company or contributing idea that no one else has. So you need to be able to have some confidence in your voice, speak up, and make sure you bring every aspect of yourself to the table.
And I think that idea is so important, especially for younger individuals who may not feel they have a voice, to be able to understand that they should have that confidence within themselves to bring out their voice and really share their voice with others. And Sydney, I want to transition here a little bit. You're the co-founder of BlackVC, which is the largest Black venture community in the entire United States. Can you share with us some of the success stories of BlackVC and young Black venture capitalists?
Sure. When I first entered venture, I was really going through the process of figuring out, how do I succeed? What does it look like to be a Black woman in venture capital, to be a successful investor? And for me to start that journey was figuring out who were the other Black investors and how did they go through this process? How could we work together to create a community and support each other? And so that was the real impetus for Black VC. It was based on me and my co-founder's experience and what we wanted to see in the industry. Since then, we've been able to launch an incredible number of programs. We've launched 3 programs that are focused on helping different types of individuals break into venture. The first program we launched was about a year ago, and now we've gone through actually 3 cycles of that program. And the first program, a few months after it launched, we went back and reevaluated it. We said, were we actually successful? Did we do this in a way that led impact? And we found that more than half of the class had actually landed jobs in venture. And that was pretty incredible. And a lot of them came to us and said, we wouldn't have found this job without you. You had a meaningful impact on our career. So I'd say on the number side of things, when you see that progress, it means a lot. But it means even more to have someone, there was a point in time where Black VC was a very small organization that I knew everyone who was part of it. I knew every Black investor who identified with Black VC. And going from that to having someone message me on LinkedIn and say, I know we haven't met, but I was part of one of your programs. I got a job at Venture because of it. And now I'm really excited to be back part of BlackVC and developing that community. Um, on that side, the personal connections there are even more impactful.
And Sydney, your work with BlackVC is an inspiration in empowering and strengthening the Black community and in providing avenues for equity as well. And through my social initiative, helping those fighting homelessness start their own businesses, it's evident that entrepreneurship is everywhere in marginalized communities. People have often tried several ventures to generate a sustainable income. How can Black VC and the VC community help and support those in marginalized communities and those fighting poverty and homelessness through entrepreneurship?
That's an incredible question. I think a lot of times people think of big tech and VC as, totally removed from working day Americans and especially from homeless Americans. But the truth is that VC is a really large part of our economy and it's a really large part of the jobs that are created in our society. And so impacting the types of companies that are created through venture-backed funding can actually have a large downstream impact on what the entire economy looks like, what homeless looks like in the future. So one impact that I think is really important is that we diversify our portfolio companies and where that talent is coming from. In the past, VC companies have been heavily based in the Bay Area. They've been heavily focused in tech hubs even more. I think it's important that we encourage our companies to build in the areas where there's most growth. And there's incredible talent across the US. There's incredible talent, not just coming from these top universities, but from all sorts of backgrounds. So I'd love to see VCs advising their companies to hire in diverse and thoughtful ways to make sure that the jobs that they're hiring for represent the needs of the entire economy. I think it's also important to spread those lessons of entrepreneurship. So most small businesses that are started are not VC backed. They are mom and pop businesses. If you think of your bodega, if you think of your laundry store across the street, that is much more common than a venture backed mobile, gaming startup. So I think understanding those lessons and how to start entrepreneurship, those need to be spread across the US. So I'd love to see entrepreneurs, VCs, early employees at startups taking time to mentor aspiring entrepreneurs from all types of backgrounds, because that's where we're going to see a lot of growth in the future. And that's also going to create a really entrepreneurial and thoughtful society.
And I want to continue on that idea of bringing entrepreneurship and VC opportunities to even younger generations now. I am very fortunate that my school has an entrepreneurship program called Spark Incubator, and I owe lots of my personal growth to Spark. Can you share stories of tech innovators and entrepreneurs you have seen or invested that started their journeys in high school or college or at a very young age?
There's tons of stories of incredible young entrepreneurs. I don't know his exact story, but Delane Purnell is a great example. Delane, a few years ago, raised, I think, the largest Series A venture capital round by a Black entrepreneur ever. He started his career as an entrepreneur in multiple ways. I believe he owned several franchises of a phone company. I can't remember exactly. He also had worked with cars. He had just found a way to hustle starting from a very early age. He saw opportunities around him, and he just took advantage of them. So he is an incredible story of an entrepreneur who just made a business wherever he saw one available to him. He's someone who I think has changed the entrepreneur landscape in a lot of ways because he's brought his full personality and he's not afraid to say where venture capital is unfair or where it needs to be changed, and how he's living that in his company, I think is really important. I've also seen tons of young entrepreneurs that you don't hear about every day. Entrepreneurs who start a company with maybe their family member, just selling whatever it is they've got, and then over time, maybe their senior year, they start a startup and they look for funding, and maybe they only raise a small amount of money or they don't raise anything at all, but it sets the foundation for them to build a company later on. And there's nothing like practice to make an entrepreneur really great. So I encourage all of you to start thinking about companies early on, because it's never too early to start your own venture, whether that's selling candy bars or, starting a mobile app. It can look like a million different things.
And Sydney, how do you think more high schools and colleges can facilitate an environment for innovation and entrepreneurship? And how do you think teen entrepreneurs can better leverage the resources of the venture capital world?
This is something that's really important to me. I think schools for a long time have focused on sort of one way of educating students. It's the idea that you come in as a kindergartner, we teach you the basics. Over time, we teach you more and more on the basics, and we build on that. And eventually, if you follow all the standards we set out, if you learn the way that we told you to learn, you can then go to college and then you can learn some more. And then eventually, 20 years later, you can go out there into the world and work on what you wanted to work on all along. I think there is a huge amount of value to practical learning, to application. Um, I wish that a lot of schools allowed students to take the things that they're most excited about and take them into practice while they're still in high school. I would love to see schools starting entrepreneurship programs where they teach people, maybe it's how to write a business plan, but it's also giving them the day-to-day skills and the mentorship they need to go out there and actually start it. So if you want to go start a cupcake catering company, okay, well, I'll be there to help you look up what are the resources you need, what resources are available from the government, what funds do you need to get started, and how can you seek those out. So I think that practical application-based education could make a really huge difference in creating more entrepreneurs in our society. I also would be really excited to see less of a pressure on liberal arts education. I think that is a huge emphasis in our society, and it works for some people, but it doesn't work for everyone. And there are lots of great programs out there focused on how to be the best entrepreneur. That's Babson is a great school for entrepreneurship. If you look at UMichigan, a great school for engineers. That practical application-based learning can create some of the smartest people in our society.
And Sydney, what would your advice be for teens and youth, and how can we be social leaders and be agents of change just like yourself?
That's a tough question. For me, social change was really about looking at my own life, what was important to me, and not sitting back and being passive about those issues. It seems like you've done the same, looking at sort of homelessness and other issues in your environment and seeing that you can add an impact and actually going after that impact. For me, I know that there are issues that are just as important, if not more important, than the representation of African Americans in venture capital. But this is the area of the world where I feel like I have a special perspective to add, where I have a special advantage that can allow me to drive impact. So I think there's no idea that's too small. I think being able to focus on something that matters to you is way more important than tackling a big issue that maybe doesn't feel as close to home. So I would tell everyone out there just to focus on something that feels important to you and that you have a special skill for.
Sydney, we thank you so much for your phenomenal leadership, support of the Black community, and for your support of young entrepreneurs and the value they bring to our country. And thank you so much for your time today and answering all of our questions.
Thank you for inviting me on, Sri. This was really wonderful. Good luck, everyone.